Hello my lovely. Today's video is going to be a slightly different video than I have usually. This channel is usually about more journaling and analog, but I am actually a hybrid between analog and digital. So lots of my planning, my initial planning all are in usually in Notion, and then my monthly, weekly and daily planning, that's in analog. But for long-term planning, usually it stays in Notion. If I have any ideas, usually it gets put into Notions first, just because it's so much easier. You can put things on the go, because I don't usually carry a lot of my journals with me. But anyway, this video is not about my planning in Notion, but a different kind of planning. So this video is about financial planning. So this year I have been trying to be really good with my money, because the inflations are not good and I really need to budget very strictly. Before this year I was budgeting in Excel, and even though it works, I wasn't very inclined to do a lot of budgeting on the go or immediately, so I put it off a lot. So in the end, sometimes it's been months since I have done all my budgets and purchases and stuff, and then in the end I didn't get to budget properly because I can't see how much I've been spending on each categories and things like that. So in the end it was kind of moot. It wasn't really budgeting, it was just logging my purchases essentially. I thought this year I want to be different. I want to get more intimate with my budgets. Essentially, I want to know week by week or even sometimes day by day how much I still have left in my budget, for me to be able to know, hey, I still can purchase this. And it's been really helpful, because if I know I only have, I don't know, $50 left to my food budget for the month, that means I can't eat out that much. Like, I have to be very careful when I do my groceries and things like that. So it's good to have that constant reminder of not splurging on things. I especially like it that it was categorized, so if that category is already run out for that month, then that is a signal for me to not buy anything of that category. Yeah, it helps me a lot to be able to budget my money. I didn't have to calculate because everything is tracked. I can see day to day how much money I still have for each category, so it's great that way. And the dashboard actually makes it easy as well for you to just see quickly in a glance, to know where you are currently, and then to log your purchases. And I even have some buttons, so if it's something that you log quickly, like I log food quite quickly because most of my purchases are food related, so there's already a food button, so it's all quickly and seamless, and it makes it so easy for you to log your purchases and stuff. I know there's budget apps out there, but the thing with me is I want to keep everything into one place and not have it in like 10 separate different apps and things like that. And because most of the stuff I have was already in Notion, like my goals, my Etsy stuff, my plan, my content planner and everything is already in Notion. I just feel like it would be good to just have it in Notion, so I don't have to keep going to another spreadsheet to do things. So I just like it to be in one place. And also you can use it very easily on a phone as well. When I was still using Google Sheets, it wasn't really that great on phone because I don't think it was made to use in a phone, so it's a bit clunky, but the Notion app is great. A few tips on how I keep myself accountable, because like I said, last year when I was still in a spreadsheet, I aim to do it every month, but I don't always do it because it feels like such a chore to me to do it. So I put it off, and then suddenly I have like a 3 months to 6 months of purchases I have to do, and then it feels like it's such a big thing to do, so I just keep putting it off. But with this, I actually consistently do it every few days or every week, because I want to keep my numbers up to date, right? Because that's way easier. It was much better for me because I log it more often, and I log it more often because I really want to see how much I have left, and if it's like, you know, green or red and things like that. So I think I've gamified it a bit for me as well, but it's really working for me, so I hope it's working for you as well. So tips on how I keep myself accountable. I do it on the go. So sometimes when I'm just waiting for if I get takeaway, I'm waiting for the food to be done, and I have done some groceries on that trip, I just quickly log down the stuff that I have. And then sometimes if I pay by cash, I don't really pay by cash. Usually I pay by card, so I can actually log it down properly. But if I pay by cash, it's quick to log it in right then, and the buttons really help as well. I also have a section as well for monthly tracker, and I try to do that on the last day of the month, because all these numbers are mostly monthly basis, so every month it resets back to 0. So if you do it before your purchases resets in the beginning of the month, then you get the proper number, or else you'll have to like rejig it a little bit to find out your month from like your numbers from last month. And whenever I get bills as well, I actually log it in straight away, even though it's in the future, because I feel like I lose a lot of my bills in my email, so logging it in earlier. So I have currently I have bills up to like next month, so it's just logged, and then when it comes to that date, I pay it on that date. So it's really useful for me to keep track on for bills as well. And also I have a section to track all my tax deductible and shop expenses. So this section you can actually use for tax return, or if you have a small business like me, or you have an Etsy shop, you can use it to log that as well. It's only meant to separate purchases, so if you have a full-blown side business, it's probably not for you. But if you want to track a certain type of purchases that spans a lot more than just one category, then it's good. I use it a lot for my tax and shop. So I have a tick list. If you tick that section, all the purchases are going to go into tax section. That makes it easier for you to do your tax return in the end of the tax season, and then your purchases are already there. And you might need to review, because maybe you'll forget to tick one of those, so you can go ahead and review it on some of the categories, and then once you tick it, it'll go off into another section, and then it's easy to actually just export it out, because with this you can actually export as CSV, so it's pretty cool. So anyway, I'm gonna give you a tour of it right now, even though I've already rambled a little bit. That's just a little bit of a long intro. I thought I'll get it all out, and then now we'll go to the tour. Okay, so now we come into the part where we do the Notion tour. So when you first get into this template, this is what you'll get. So there's a readme, because this template actually lets you do your budget first before starting on everything, because budgeting is very important. So when you first get into this template, you will be encouraged to set up your budgets, because that is probably one of the most important part of this. If you have the budgets, then it all works, because if you scroll down here, this is where if you categorize your purchases properly, that's when you'll know how much in track you are when it comes to all these numbers. I will take you through the dashboard first, because this is probably the page that you'll be on the most, and then I'll take you through the budgeting and everything else. So in this dashboard, what you'll get is you'll get the navigation, and so this will have links to your budgeting, all your income and expenses page, and your monthly tracker. So there's also a tax deduction section. That is for when you tick one of these boxes, tax deductible, it will appear straight away on that tax deduction section. So it's pretty handy for me, and I included that in there in case you like to keep track of some either tax deduction, or if it's something like special purchases, if you want to keep track on all the things that you purchase for home renovation or something like that, then you can use that section for that as well. But let me take you through the page. So it has your savings goal here. I think it's really important to know how much savings you have, so you'll have it here, like right in there. You can add new pages as well. If it's like, you're saving for a trip or something like that, you can also add a new page easily. We'll have all your expenses up here, and then down here is where it's all your monthly expenses. So this section will show you each of the category of your expenses, and it'll tell you how much you have remaining. And there's some buttons here as well for easy logging. Like if there's one for an expense from today, so if you click this, then it'll make an expense on today's date, and then it'll show it there. So you can just say amount, say $20, and then you just have to put in the category, say transport or something like that. but also there's some that is very particular. So the way that you can customize this is to hit this edit button, and then when the button is clicked, it will name it, and then it'll add the date. Usually it's today's date, and then it'll put in the category. But you can also edit another property and add the amount if you know the exact amount it will be. In my personal one, I have one for my gym bills because I know that comes in fortnightly, and I know that's the same amount always, so you can add the amount, so you don't have to always put in, you know, the same amount if you know what the amount is. So it's very handy that way. And if you click on, say, food expense, and it will already categorize it as food, so all you have to do is change this to maybe groceries or something, and then amount, say, $30, and then it will show you there. So once you've already done this, you can see now that on your food and on your transport, it already has the $30 in here. So that's when you know, okay, I'm still in budget, because that is still on green. So that's how you know that you're still in budget. If I add, so if budget for food is 500, and then you add food expense that is more than 500, say, and we'll categorize it as food, you'll see that it turns red now because you're over budget, and it'll tell you how many percent you are already doing as well. I also have this section here that I find very helpful. So it will tell you the expenses of the month. So this is your income from the bottom. We will ignore it for now because it comes from another tables. It'll tell you that the expenses is 550. You're still in green because all of these are still green. If it's bigger than this amount, which is 4887, then what happens is it will turn red. So the 11% here is actually how many percent of the budget you have used up, and then the remaining is the budget you still have for now. So if you do your math, you know that budget minus expenses is the remaining. So the remaining is basically what you still have in your budget for the month. And days pass, I just have this, so because I like to compare the how many days has passed into the percentage of budgets, and I would like to make sure usually that my percentage of budget that I've used is less than the days passed, because that makes me feel better, because then I'm underspending, if that makes sense. For this one, it's the category, and then it's how much have you used out of the budget that you've set for that category, and then the percentage is how much you have used. So 20 is 25% of 80, so things like that. If you see this where we've gone over budget, it says 106 because obviously we have overspent on that category. But your whole thing is still green because on some of these you haven't hit your budget. So it gives you a little bit of leeway in that if you're not spending as much as entertainment this month, maybe you can spend a little bit more on your hobby or something like that. So hopefully that helps. I like my budget to be slightly still flexible between the categories, so hopefully that helps. This will be all your expenses, and then I have it on this week, and then there's this month as well, and then you can also add a few that is just like, you know, food only, because most of my stuff are food, so it's easy to see for me. There's also last month and next month if I need to put in bills. So there's a calendar view as well where you can see how much you're spending each of the days. So I find that helpful sometimes as well. And this one is, I put the income in the bottom. I usually put things on the expenses way more, like 5 times over incomes. Incomes probably not too much, right? So that's why I put it on the bottom. But this is pretty simple, same as well. There's also 2 buttons here, and this is because if you work full-time, then you know how much money is coming into your account. So with this, you can actually say how much amount of money you get paid per month or per fortnight or whatever, right? So it's easy for you to, if you get paid, just hit this on the day that you get paid. It already pulls in everything that you set up in the button, the name, work, and then the amount is already there, and the category is already there, and the date is today's date. So that's easy, and then you can add extra stuff as well. And then we will get this on the side as well. and tells you this month how much that you have. So if you're getting paid fortnightly and you have another work thing, then it will give you the total of all the categories. So I like to make things easier for myself, so that is already in there. So hopefully that makes it easier for you as well. That we've gotten through the dashboard, what we're going to do, this is what you should do in the beginning actually. Like, you shouldn't start on the dashboard, but what you should start doing is after you read this, you should go to the budgeting place, because this is where you actually do all your budgeting, and it's very important because that's how it'll work, that you can see how much you're spending and how on budget you are and things like that. So for me, this is really important. First, what you have to do is to fill in your expected income per month per category. So say you get from work 3,500, you put that in, and then everything else as well, or your projected income for the month. If things are more vague, I usually kind of look at my past income for the whole month, and then I kind of divide it by 12, so I know the average income of that category per month. So with shares, you don't always get a dividend every month, right? So what you do is basically average it out. So say if you get 50 per month or something like that, and for Etsy, if you have an Etsy, these ones you can add or remove, right? These are just here to start you off. Once you've done that, there's a step 1.5. This is optional. So usually there's this rule called the 50-30-20 rule. So 50% of your earnings should go to your needs, and 30% on your wants, and 20% for saving. So with what you do here, because you know your sum is actually 4,000, then you can calculate how many is 50%. You know 50% is 2,000. So 30% of 4,000 is 1,200. I had to get a calculator for this. 20% out of 4,000 is 800. So now you know, if you start doing this section later down the track, you will track how much your needs, wants, and savings. But we will go there later, because step 2 is fill in your savings goal and how much you wanted to save per month. So say for house deposit you need 50 grand, and for your investment you need 10 grand. These ones, if you want to add anything in here, say you want like to save for a holiday, you have to make a new expenses categories, because obviously that needs to link to expense categories. So say you want to put in for a holiday, say 5,000, and time frame you want to go in 12 months. So this is the savings per month that you need to get for you to be able to save that much. And then it'll tell you how much you save and how much is remaining, but you have to create a new. So I'll call it the same. I'll call it holiday in expenses categories, and you add new. So that is now made, and you have a holiday savings goal for 5,000. So once you get here, this is when the needs and wants and savings are going to be really important. So important that I'm going to make this into a block. Okay, so I've created that into a block, so whatever you change up here would change down there, so it's easier for you to see. So now that you've seen all this, right, this is all the expenses categories that you have. What I like to do is I like to put in the icon that has the same color as the color of the category, like the needs, wants, or savings, just so I know that belongs to that. So when it comes to this, it's easier to see, you know, each of the category and things like that. But I've also broken it down into 3 different sections for needs and wants and savings. So say on need, your budget is 2,000. If you see that all your needs are actually over 2,000, that means you're overspending a bit. So if you can rein it in a little bit to get this number, then that would be great. But if not, then these are not like hard and fast rules. Like, you know, if you really need to spend on certain needs, then you really need it. So it's a little bit harder to squeeze it in. With wants, it's the same. You can see how much you're spending on the wants on the sum. This is all your budgets. To be closer or lower is also good. So if I'm looking at this and my budget is actually lower than my wants, then that's great. So more savings for you, right? So with savings, also with the holiday, on the budget, what you have to do is when you are doing this holiday thing, it says that, you know, savings per month is 417. So now that you know that you need to save 417 per month, then you have to put the 417 in here. So that's your budget to save for your holiday. So there you go, that's budgeting in a nutshell. I hope that doesn't take you too long, but I feel like it's really good if you actually have done this. You do it probably once a year. Like I usually do this budgeting things in the beginning of the year. What I usually do is to see my purchases from last year and figure out how much I spend per month for each of the categories, and then I'll decide if, you know what, I think I can spend a little bit more because I know I have been overspending on, say, clothes last year and I don't want to buy as much this year, and you can put it down a little bit. If you have been overspending in a category and it's a need, so say your transport is getting higher, then you know you can put more budget into that and then maybe cut off on something that is a want and things like that. So I do that every year. But if you set this up properly and if you really think about that, it'll make your year easier. So once you've already done that, everything is done on the dashboard basically. So once you've done all your budgets, all you need to do is to go to the dashboard day by day to like log in your expenses and then log in your income. What I also do is for your savings, I actually put them on expenses as well. I know it's not really an expense because it goes back into your bank account, but you still need to budget that in, so I like to add it as an expense. The only thing that's a little bit different is if it's red on any of your wants or needs, it's bad because you've gone over budget, right? If you've done more investment or like savings into holidays, then what you have, it's actually good, but it still turns red because it's the same table, so I can't make different adjustments for it. So say I have put in away for holiday savings $500, and then I put this into the holiday category. It looks a little bit sad that that's the only one that doesn't have an icon, but you can see this is how I change my icon. Maybe just a plain. I like this one because it looks like it's departing somewhere. So if we use that, then you know that's a saving. So it'll show there, and then it'll show here as well. So that's what I'm saying, that if you actually put in more money than you're meant to, it will turn red. But it's a good thing that it turns red. That means you're saving more than your budget. And the good thing about this is if you scroll up, it's linked. So basically the 500 that you put into your expense table goes into this, so you can keep track on how much you've saved. So I think that's a pretty nifty feature, if I may say so myself. With this template, you're mostly gonna be on the dashboard. It's being called the dashboard for a reason. Everything is in there. So this is the income section, and this has all the incomes of the year, but you can also look for this month and things like that, and just for your work income and things like that. It's easy for you to see. There's these tables as well. There's also a yearly section, and this will track your yearly income until the current month. So essentially the budget will be what you put into the budget times the month, the amount of month. So because now it's November, so it's what you have for your work times 11. So I just like to see my spendings and my earnings in a yearly look as well, so I included this one as well. For the expenses, it's also the same, so you'll have all the expenses. You can do this month, or this is everything. So once you started putting it in, it can get very long, so that's why I usually like to be just on the this month section, because that is much shorter. It also have the section for all your spendings monthly. It's the exact same table on your dashboard, but I just like it to have it here as well. And then same as the income section, this also has the yearly expenses section, and I've included some things in here just like for some summary. So these are your yearly expenses. So it's very low because obviously I haven't filled a lot of these. Like the income, the amount is, this is how much you've spent, and this is how much you're budgeted to spend for the whole year up to this current month. So this will be times 11 of whatever you have on your budget, because remember our holiday fund is 417, so 417 times 11 is apparently 4587. I don't know if that's true because my math is bad, but this should calculate it automatically for you, and then it'll also tell you the monthly average you've been spending. I find that very useful because sometimes there's spendings that you don't spend every month, so maybe like you didn't spend on your hobby this month. It'll just even it out and it'll just average it for this year. Your monthly section will reset every month, so every month it'll just go back to 0 because it'll only count the current month, and then your yearly section will only count your year section. So if you want all these numbers, make sure when it comes to December you screenshot to get this information, because once the month rolls over you won't have that information anymore. What I like to do is I like to have my own tracker, so this is what I also made. This is optional, by the way. I just like it because I like to track it. So in this section what I have is all the expenses this month, like all the categories and stuff, and then I have this section which is my monthly spending tracker, and this is you have to do it manually. The way I usually do this is I set in the last day of the month, like usually if it's the 30th, so say last October I sat down on the 31st and then I name it 2024, say 10 for October, and then with this I transfer all the section down here one by one to know how much I spent on each, and this will just count it up. So if you do it diligently every month, then you get numbers, averages and stuff. It's easier to track. So say I've already done the November one as well, dated on the last day of the month, and put some numbers here. What you can tell is you can see all the average down here as well, which is very handy, or you can change it to a sum. The way you change it, if you want it on a sum, it's more options sum, or you can do more options average. So that's the two that I usually go back and forth between. And then there's also some of this section where it's like total, so it's the total of all your spendings, all of this added up into your total, and this one is total without mortgage and utilities. I like to track that just because I know mortgage and utilities I have no control towards, but everything else I do. So I would like to see the fluctuation on this. Maybe on some month I do get a lot more stuff, or like I buy a lot more things. And then there's savings section as well. So this is the way you see the savings is you have to relate this to an income tracker. For the monthly tracker, this total is a formula and it only has these fields. If you create any more fields, you have to actually edit the property. Say if you add a section for savings or something, and change that into a number, and once you've done that, you want this to be included in the total, you have to actually go into this and edit property and edit the formula, because this right now has all the sections that I've included. So what you want to do, if you want to add that, just go comma, and then this should come up, right? The name of the columns, and then obviously you look for savings. It's not savings, but it's savings one because there's already a savings. But anyway, if you put in savings one, it will add it into the total. So now if you add $5, say, it will come up on here. That's an extra $5. So what this is there's this income tracker. I'm just going to change it to a 10. So it's the same as what I have there. And then if you have another one for November, say, and this is, we'll change it to November 30, and say you earn. So each of this section will be a different area of work. You can look at this and then you just figure out how much you earn per month. So once you have this, what you do is you relate it to the month. So if this is November 2024 and this is also November 2024, what you have to do is you relate the income to, when it loads, 2024-11, and then that is what will give you the savings amount. So basically, savings amount are just gonna be what you earn minus your spending, so you can track if you're in track with your savings as well. That's why I did not include savings in here, because I assume anything that you don't spend goes into savings, no matter if you're saving for a house deposit, a holiday, or your emergency fund or anything. It just says a savings. You can ignore this as well you can track your savings naturally as well, but I just like this section because it's just easier to do that, right? A bonus is a tax deduction section. So this is to track certain categories and expenses. I use this to track my side incomes. That's why this has the income source of the Etsy and the affiliate that maybe I want to track. And then there's some expenses category. So like some of my hobby things maybe goes in here, because I like to spend the money that I get from Etsy to fund my hobbies. So that's why the hobby is also here. But this will pulls in any of the income that you tag on here. So this is Etsy and affiliate. You can tag more if you want. And then these are the expenses, and you can change the category. So basically this is the hobby category. So I like to have that in here, but obviously you can add as much as you want. And on this section is the tax deductible expenses, which meant that any of the expenses that you have tagged with a tax deductible tick mark will appear here. So you can also add in your receipt in the other section as well. So when it comes to tax time, you have all your tax deductible in here, so it's easier to do your taxes and stuff. So I hope that helps. I like to do that as well. So if you want to export, you actually have to go to view database, and then it'll show you all these things in a page. And then I think if you filter it according to the tax deductible is checked, right? If you go to these three dots on the side, you can export, and usually you can export with a few different things: PDF, HTML, or Markdown, and CSV. And when you include database, use the current view one, so you can get all the thing. And then there's the receipt and stuff, just include everything. And then if you export, it will give you two. The first one has everything, right? And then the second one actually only has that tax deductible one. So it's easy for you to, put this in if you ever need it on a CSV. It's much more helpful than me having to recreate. So I hope that helped. And also, I forgot to mention as well, but these are all in US dollars, just because it has the cleanest dollar. Like I even budget on US dollars. Not really, but the dollar sign. Because if you edit property, because there's this number format. So if you're not on dollars and if you're in like euro, then you can use that. And then that should change it to euro, right? But the thing is, why I use US dollar is because Australian dollar takes way too many space. It has the A in the beginning, and I'm like, I don't have to constantly be reminded that I'm Australian and I like budget with Australian dollar, so I just use the US dollar. But anyway, if you actually budget on anything that's not like using the dollar sign, that's how you can change it. And I think that's probably it. But if you have any questions or anything, just let me know. If you have any feedback on the templates, and if there's something else that you want in there that I don't have, maybe you want extra, fields on the monthly tracker or something like that, just let me know. Put it on the comments below. I will check it. And because if you purchase this template, you actually get the link to my Notion to duplicate. You always get the newest one. So what I might be able to do is, if I do update it, I will provide a version history somewhere down here, so you know when you last get it and if it's like the current one or things like that. But I hope that helps. This, seriously, out of my template, this one is probably the one that I am most proud about, because essentially I've used it for nearly a year. Not every day, but at least every week. Sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes every few days. But I refer to this a lot, and it has gone through so many iterations because I want it to be useful for me. So I keep adding all these things, and I keep adding all the monthly summaries and things like that. And the savings is something that I added very new as well. So this is like I feel like it has gone through a lot of work. So I hope it's useful for you. I think that for me is really powerful, right? Is being able to see where you are on your budget, how much remaining in your budget, and how much you have spent. If you know you're like overspending or not, I feel like that is so powerful. So if you actually quite diligent in doing this, every few days or every day even, then you will be much more on track on your budget. So I hope that it helped. I will put this in my Gumroad. I will leave the link down below as well if you're interested to get them. And yeah, like I said, this is probably one of my favorite. I've used it a lot, so I can attest to like the ease of use and things like that. I like to make things easier for myself, because one of the sayings I go by is work smarter, not harder. So I hope this will be useful for you. Like I said, if there's any feedback or any suggestion, feel free to let me know so I can improve this for you as well, because obviously right now it's a sample size of 1, even though it works really well for me. So let me know if you like it, if you have any suggestion for it. I hope it's useful, and I hope this will help you budget and save, so we all can be millionaires. So I feel like financial literacy is very, very important, and I feel like the first thing that you want to do when you save and things like that is make sure you set your budget and follow it through. Little things eventually add up. So there you go. I hope this is useful. It's been really useful for me for the last 10 months. If these kind of videos is something you like, do let me know, because they're not my usual content, so they don't do really well usually, but it's still something I am really passionate about. I love making Notion templates. So if you also have a suggestion on what kind of Notion templates you want me to make, let me know, because my current plan is to do a content planner and maybe a meal planner, because those are what I use day to day. I already have a content planner, but I want to revamp it and I want to share it as well. So I hope to see you in one of these kind of videos soon. I hope you enjoy that little look around the template, and stay safe, take care, and stay creative. Bye bye. Thank you so much.